The afternoon sun beat down on Riverdale Heights as 17-year-old Andre Taylor drove his mother's sedan carefully through the neighborhood. He was heading home after basketball practice, his gym bag tossed in the back seat alongside his school backpack. The radio played softly as Andre checked his watch. He had promised to help his little sister with her science project before dinner. Andre slowed down at a stop sign, coming to a complete halt before proceeding. In his rearview mirror, he noticed a police cruiser that hadn't been there moments before. He continued driving at exactly the speed limit, both hands on the wheel, a habit his father had drilled into him since he got his license 6 months ago. The flash of red and blue lights made Andre's heart skip. He checked his speed again, 25 mi in a 25 zone. He signaled and pulled over to the curb, trying to keep his breathing steady as he recalled his father's instructions. Window down. Hands at 10 and 2, be respectful. No sudden movements. Officer Kevin Randall approached the driver's side window, his face unreadable behind mirrored sunglasses despite the cloudy afternoon. He was a veteran of the Riverdale Heights Police Department, with 15 years on the force and a reputation among certain neighborhoods for his strict enforcement. License and registration, Officer Randall said flatly, not bothering with a greeting. Yes, sir, Andre replied, his voice steady despite his nervousness. My registration is in the glove compartment, sir. I'm going to reach for it now. Officer Randall watched silently as Andre retrieved the documents and handed them over. The officer studied them longer than seemed necessary before speaking again. Do you know why I pulled you over today? He asked, his tone suggesting Andre should already know the answer. Andre shook his head slightly. No, sir, I don't. You rolled through that stop sign back there, Officer Randall said, though this wasn't true. Andre had come to a complete stop, and somewhere deep down, the officer knew it. Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm certain I came to a complete stop, Andre said politely. Officer Randall's expression hardened. Are you arguing with me, son? No, sir, just explaining what happened, Andre replied, trying to keep his voice calm. He could feel his palms getting sweaty against the steering wheel. Mrs. Chen, who had lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, was watering her front garden across the street. She paused, her watering can suspended mid-air as she watched the interaction with growing concern. A few houses down, Ray Washington had just pulled into his driveway and was now watching through his car window instead of going inside. Step out of the vehicle, Officer Randall ordered suddenly. May I ask why, sir? Andre asked, confusion evident in his voice. I said step out of the vehicle, now. Officer Randall's hand moved to rest on his holstered weapon, a gesture not lost on Andre, whose heart was now racing. Andre carefully unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door slowly, maintaining the deliberate movements his parents had taught him. He stood beside his car, keys still in the ignition. Turn around and place your hands on the roof of the car, Officer Randall instructed. Andre complied immediately. Sir, have I done something wrong? I detect the smell of marijuana coming from your vehicle, Officer Randall claimed, though there was no such smell. Andre didn't use drugs, and neither did anyone who had been in his mother's car. There's no marijuana in the car, sir. I don't use drugs, Andre stated, his voice beginning to shake slightly. Officer Randall ignored him. I'm going to search your vehicle. Mrs. Chen had set down her watering can and was now recording with her phone from her garden. Ray Washington had stepped out of his car and was slowly walking closer, his own phone now in hand. A couple of teenagers on bikes had stopped on the other side of the street, watching the scene unfold. Officer Randall began searching the car without waiting for a response, rummaging through Andre's gym bag and backpack, tossing his neatly folded clothes onto the seat. Sir, I don't consent to a search, Andre said, remembering something he'd learned in his civics class. Officer Randall straightened up, his face flushing with anger. What did you just say to me? I said I don't consent to a search, sir. I believe you need a warrant or probable cause. The change in Officer Randall was immediate and alarming. Take your hands off the car and face me. Andre turned slowly, keeping his hands visible. Sir, Shut up, Officer Randall snapped. You think you know the law better than me? You being smart? No, sir, Andre said quietly. I'm just trying to understand. Hands behind your back, Officer Randall ordered, pulling handcuffs from his belt. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Andre was stunned. Resisting? Sir, I haven't resisted anything. Officer Randall roughly grabbed Andre's arm, spinning him around and pushing him against the car as he applied the handcuffs. Andre winced as the metal bit into his wrists. By now, more neighbors had gathered. Mrs. Chen had moved closer, still recording. "He's just a boy," she called out. "He hasn't done anything." "Return to your home, ma'am, or you'll be arrested for interfering with police business," Officer Randall called back without looking at her. Ray Washington stepped forward. "Officer, I've been watching the whole time. This young man has been completely cooperative." Officer Randall glared at Ray. "This doesn't concern you, sir. Move along." A second police car arrived, responding to Officer Randall's earlier call for backup. Officer Patel, a younger officer, stepped out and took in the scene with obvious confusion. "What's the situation?" Officer Patel asked, approaching cautiously. "Got a disorderly subject who resisted search and arrest," Officer Randall said loudly. Then, in a lower voice that only Officer Patel could hear, he added, "These kids from the east side think they can drive through here like they own the place." Officer Patel glanced at Andre, noting his school basketball shirt, neat appearance, and the fear in his eyes. Something didn't add up. "You can't do this," Andre said, his voice breaking slightly. "I was just driving home from practice. I didn't do anything wrong." "Keep talking," Officer Randall said with a smirk. "It'll look great on your growing rap sheet." "I don't have a rap sheet," Andre protested. "I've never been in trouble. I'm in the National Honor Society. You can call my parents. My dad is a pharmacist at Mercy Hospital." Officer Randall ignored this, instead leading Andre toward the patrol car. Mrs. Chen stepped closer, her phone still recording. "I have it all on video," she called out. "The whole thing. He did nothing wrong." Officer Patel approached Mrs. Chen. "Ma'am, can I get your contact information?" "You say you have video of the entire interaction?" Officer Randall shot his colleague an angry look. "We don't need civilian interference, Patel. Handle crowd control." As Andre was placed in the back of the patrol car, he saw his basketball coach, Mr. Rivera, pull up in his truck. Andre had texted him when he was first pulled over, a habit his mother had insisted on. "What's happening here?" Mr. Rivera asked, approaching quickly. "That's one of my players." "Sir, please stay back," Officer Patel said, trying to de-escalate the growing tension. "Where are you taking him?" Mr. Rivera demanded. "I'm calling his parents right now." Inside the patrol car, Andre fought back tears as he watched the neighborhood he'd grown up in disappear through the window. His thoughts raced to his parents. His father would be finishing his shift at the hospital, his mother teaching her final class of the day at the community college. They'd be worried sick when he didn't come home. At the police station, Andre was processed like a criminal, photographed, fingerprinted, and placed in a holding cell. Officer Randall filled out his report with embellished details that bore little resemblance to what had actually happened. "Got another one of those troublemakers from the east side," Officer Randall told the desk sergeant, "acting like he knows the law better than I do." The desk sergeant, Officer Brooks, looked up from her computer. "This the kid from Riverdale Heights?" Dispatch mentioned there were multiple calls from witnesses saying the arrest looked questionable. Officer Randall scoffed. "People see what they want to see." Kid was combative, refused to comply with orders, and resisted arrest. In the small holding cell, Andre sat on the bench, still in his basketball practice clothes. His thoughts a mix of fear, confusion, and anger. He had done everything right. Everything his parents had taught him about interacting with police. How had this happened anyway? Meanwhile, Andre's parents, Thomas and Lisa Taylor, were frantically making calls. They'd already contacted their family attorney, Diane Reynolds, who specialized in civil rights cases. Mr. Rivera had sent them the contact information for Mrs. Chen and other witnesses. Lisa was on the phone with the police station, her voice steady but firm as she demanded information about her son. Back at the station, Officer Randall was unaware that the entire incident had been captured, not just on Mrs. Chen's phone, but also on his own body cam, which he had forgotten to turn off. As he joked with a couple of other officers about teaching the kid a lesson, the camera recorded every word, building a case that would soon return to haunt him in ways he couldn't imagine. Thomas and Lisa Taylor rushed through the doors of the Riverdale Heights police station, their faces tight with worry. Thomas, still wearing his white pharmacist coat from his shift at Mercy Hospital, approached the front desk with Lisa right beside him. "We're here for our son, Andre Taylor," Thomas said, his voice calm but firm. "He was wrongfully arrested this afternoon. The desk officer, a middle-aged woman named Officer Brooks, looked up from her computer screen. She had been on the force for 20 years and had seen many parents come through those doors. But something about the Taylors made her pause. There was a dignity in their stance, a controlled urgency that spoke of their character. "One moment, please," Officer Brooks said, typing Andre's name into the system. She frowned slightly at what she saw on the screen. "He's being processed on charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest." Officer Randall made the arrest. Lisa stepped forward. "My son is 17 years old with no prior record. He's the vice president of his class and has never been in trouble. There's been a terrible mistake." Thomas placed a steadying hand on his wife's shoulder. "We've already contacted our attorney, Diane Reynolds. She's on her way. We'd like to see our son immediately." While they waited, Mrs. Chen had arrived at the station as well, her phone with the recording clutched tightly in her hand. She spotted the Taylors and approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you Andre's parents?" "I saw what happened. I recorded everything." Lisa's eyes widened. "You did? You saw the arrest?" Mrs. Chen nodded. "Your son did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. The officer was—" She lowered her voice. "Very aggressive for no reason." Thomas extended his hand. "Thank you for coming forward. Our attorney is on her way. Would you be willing to speak with her?" Meanwhile, in the holding cell, Andre sat with his head in his hands. The cold metal bench dug into his legs as he tried to make sense of what had happened. The cell was small, with graffiti scratched into the walls and a persistent smell of bleach that couldn't quite mask the underlying odors. A young officer, different from Randall, approached the cell. "Taylor, your parents are here. We're moving you to an interview room." Andre looked up, relief washing over his face. "My parents are here?" The officer nodded, unlocking the cell door. "Follow me." Andre was led down a hallway to a small room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 3 chairs. The officer gestured for him to sit down. "Wait here. Your parents will be brought in shortly." When the door opened again, Andre jumped to his feet. Lisa rushed to him, wrapping her arms around her son. Thomas was right behind her, placing a protective hand on Andre's shoulder. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Lisa asked, checking her son for injuries. "I'm okay, Mom," Andre said, his voice shaky. "I didn't do anything wrong. I swear." "We know, son," Thomas said firmly. "We know." They sat down at the table and Andre recounted everything that had happened. The unnecessary stop, Officer Randall's baseless accusations, and the escalation that led to his arrest. "He said I smelled like marijuana, but I've never even been around it," Andre explained. Then he started searching the car without asking. "When I said I didn't consent to the search, he got really angry." Thomas's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "You did the right thing, Andre. You were respectful but knew your rights." The door opened, and attorney Diane Reynolds entered, a slender woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense demeanor and a leather briefcase that had seen better days. She'd been the Taylor family's attorney for years, handling everything from their home purchase to a fender bender last winter. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, setting her briefcase on the table. "Traffic was a nightmare. Andre, are you all right?" Andre nodded, relief evident in his eyes at seeing a familiar, trusted face. "I've already spoken with the desk sergeant," Diane continued. "There's a witness outside, Mrs. Chen, who recorded the entire incident. I've reviewed the footage, and it completely contradicts Officer Randall's report." Just then, the door opened again, and Officer Randall entered with the station captain, a stern-looking man named Captain Wilson. Officer Randall's confident smirk faltered slightly when he saw Diane. "Mr. and Mrs. Taylor," Captain Wilson began, "I understand your concern, but your son was wrongfully arrested," Diane interrupted, opening her laptop. "And I have video evidence to prove it." Officer Randall shifted uncomfortably. The boy was disrespectful and resistant to lawful commands. "Let's watch the video together, shall we?" Diane suggested, turning her laptop around. "Mrs. Chen was kind enough to send me the footage right away." The room fell silent as they watched the recording. It clearly showed Andre following all instructions, speaking respectfully, and Officer Randall escalating the situation without cause. When the video ended, Captain Wilson's expression had changed significantly. "Officer Randall, step outside with me," he ordered. In the hallway, Officer Randall's confident demeanor had vanished. "Captain, you know how these situations can get distorted on camera. The kid was giving me attitude. Enough." Captain Wilson interrupted. I've got a 17-year-old honor student with no record sitting in there with his pharmacist father, college professor mother, and their attorney, plus video evidence showing you fabricated charges. Do you have any idea the liability you've just created for this department? Back in the interview room, Diane was explaining the next steps to the Taylor family. They're going to drop the charges, she assured them. But we shouldn't stop there. What happened to Andre is part of a pattern. Officer Randall has had 3 excessive force complaints in the past 2 years. Will filing a complaint actually do anything? Lisa asked skeptically. It might not, Diane admitted. But there's something else. All officers in Riverdale Heights wear body cameras. Officer Randall's camera would have captured everything, including anything he said before and after the arrest. Outside the interview room, Officer Randall was growing increasingly agitated as Captain Wilson continued to question him. You said in your report the boy was combative, Captain Wilson said, flipping through the paperwork. That's not what I saw in that video. With all due respect, sir, civilians don't understand the split-second decisions we have to make in the field, Officer Randall argued. Captain Wilson's expression hardened. And what about the alleged marijuana smell you used as probable cause for the search? The boy's clean record suggests otherwise. Officer Randall's face flushed. Look, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know trouble when I see it. Those kids from the east side are always up to something. Captain Wilson's eyebrows shot up. Those kids? What exactly do you mean by that, Officer Randall? Before Officer Randall could respond, another officer approached them hesitantly. Excuse me, Captain, but there's something you should know, the young officer said. After bringing the Taylor kid in, Officer Randall was talking in the break room. His body camera was still recording. Captain Wilson frowned. And? The young officer looked uncomfortable. He was saying things, sir. About the arrest. About the Taylor family. Racial things. Captain Wilson's expression darkened further. Get me that footage now. Inside the interview room, Diane was discussing potential next steps with the Taylors when Captain Wilson returned. His face grim. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, Andre, he began formally. On behalf of the Riverdale Heights Police Department, I want to apologize for what happened today. All charges against Andre are being dropped immediately. Relief washed over the family, but Thomas remained serious. Thank you, Captain, but an apology isn't enough. My son was handcuffed and put in a cell for doing absolutely nothing wrong. Captain Wilson nodded. I understand. Officer Randall has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. We've retrieved his body camera footage, which, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully, contains additional concerning material. Diane leaned forward. We'll need that footage, Captain. There will be a formal process for that, Captain Wilson replied. But I want you to know I take this very seriously. As they left the police station, Andre walked between his parents, emotionally exhausted but relieved. The evening air felt cool on his face after hours in the stuffy holding cell. It's over now, Lisa said, squeezing his hand. Andre shook his head slowly. It doesn't feel over. Thomas placed his arm around his son's shoulders. It's not over. What happened to you today wasn't right, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. When they arrived home, Andre's 12-year-old sister, Zoe, ran out to meet them. She threw her arms around her brother, her face streaked with tears. I was so scared, she whispered. Amy's brother got arrested last year and he had to stay in jail for 3 days. Andre hugged his sister tightly. I'm home now. It's okay. Inside, the phone was ringing off the hook. Word had spread through their community. Andre's basketball coach, Mr. Rivera, had called twice. 3 of Andre's teammates were waiting in the living room, having come over to show their support. Later that night, as the house finally quieted, Andre sat at the kitchen table with his parents. The weight of the day's events hung heavy in the air. How do you feel? Thomas asked his son. Andre was quiet for a moment. Angry, scared, confused. He looked up at his father. I did everything you taught me to do. I was polite. I kept my hands visible. I didn't argue. And none of it mattered. Lisa wiped away a tear. I'm so sorry, baby, but you know what? Andre continued, a new resolve in his voice. I'm not just going to be angry. I'm going to do something about it. Thomas nodded slowly. We all will. Diane thinks we have a strong case not just against Officer Randall, but against the department for allowing his behavior to continue despite previous complaints. It's not just about our case, Andre said firmly. This happens to people who don't have lawyers or parents who can drop everything and rush to the police station. People who don't have witnesses with videos. As they talked into the night, none of them knew that across town, Officer Randall's body camera footage was being reviewed by increasingly concerned police officials. Footage that would soon change everything. The next morning, the Taylor home buzzed with activity. Thomas had taken the day off from the pharmacy, and Lisa had rearranged her teaching schedule. Andre's phone kept lighting up with messages from friends who had heard about the incident. Some shared similar stories that they'd never told anyone before. "Did you see this?" Lisa asked, turning her laptop toward her husband and son. The local news website had picked up the story. Local honor student alleges wrongful arrest, racial profiling. Thomas frowned as he read the article. They're making it sound like it's just an allegation even though there's video evidence. At least they're covering it, Andre pointed out. Mrs. Chen sent me a message. 3 more neighbors have come forward with videos. One of them caught the whole thing from their doorbell camera. The doorbell rang and Lisa went to answer it. Diane Reynolds stood on the porch, looking more determined than ever, her briefcase stuffed with papers. "I've been up half the night," she announced as she entered, declining Lisa's offer of coffee. "The more I dig into Officer Randall's history, the worse it gets." They gathered around the dining room table as Diane spread out documents. 5 complaints in the past 3 years, she explained, pointing to a spreadsheet she'd created. All from Black or Hispanic drivers. All dismissed due to insufficient evidence. But there's a pattern here that's impossible to ignore. Andre leaned forward, studying the papers. "What about the body camera footage the captain mentioned?" "That's why I'm here," Diane said, her expression serious. "I've filed an official request for the footage under public disclosure laws, but these things can take time. However, I have a contact in the department who says what's on that footage is..." She hesitated, glancing at Andre's parents. "Extremely disturbing." "How disturbing?" Thomas asked, his hand finding Lisa's under the table. "Officer Randall made several explicitly racist comments after arresting Andre," Diane explained carefully. "He also bragged to other officers about targeting drivers from the East Side, which, as we all know, is predominantly Black and Hispanic." Andre's jaw tightened, but he wasn't surprised. "So what happens now?" "We have options," Diane said, pulling out another document. "We can file a civil rights lawsuit against Officer Randall and the department. We can also push for criminal charges for false arrest and filing a false police report." Thomas and Lisa exchanged glances. "What do you think is best?" Lisa asked honestly. "All of the above," Diane replied. "But I want you to understand what that means. This won't be quick or easy. The police union will fight us every step of the way. There will be people in this community who take Officer Randall's side no matter what evidence we present." "Will Andre have to testify?" Lisa asked, concern evident in her voice. "Eventually, yes," Diane confirmed. "But you won't be alone," she added, looking directly at Andre. "And your testimony will be powerful." Andre nodded slowly. "I want to do it. Not just for me, but for everyone this has happened to who didn't have videos or witnesses or parents who could drop everything and rush to the station." His parents looked at him with a mixture of pride and concern. At 17, their son was being forced to confront harsh realities they had hoped to protect him from a little longer. "There's something else," Diane continued. "The media has gotten wind of this story. My phone's been ringing non-stop with reporters wanting statements. Should we talk to them?" Thomas asked. Diane considered this. Carefully, yes. Public pressure can be a powerful tool in cases like this. But you should be prepared for backlash, too. As they discussed strategy, Andre's phone buzzed with a text from his basketball coach. "Team meeting. My house, 4 p.m., important. Later that afternoon?" Andre arrived at Coach Rivera's modest home to find the entire team already there, along with Mrs. Chen and several other neighbors who had witnessed his arrest. "We're here for you." "Man," his teammate Dion said, giving him a fist bump as he entered. Coach Rivera called everyone to attention. "Listen up. What happened to Andre yesterday isn't just his fight. It's all of ours." Mrs. Chen stepped forward. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. I've seen how certain officers treat our young people, especially our young Black men. It's time we did something about it." An older gentleman named Mr. Washington, who had also witnessed the arrest, spoke up. "I've compiled a list of similar incidents in our neighborhood over the past 5 years. There's a clear pattern of harassment and profiling. Coach Rivera nodded. We're organizing a community meeting at the rec center tomorrow night. The mayor and police chief have agreed to attend. We want them to hear directly from the people they're supposed to serve and protect. Andre looked around the room, overwhelmed by the support. He had always seen himself as just a regular kid, a student, a basketball player, a big brother. Now suddenly, he was at the center of something much bigger than himself. I don't know what to say, he admitted. You don't have to say anything, Coach Rivera told him. Just know you're not alone in this. Meanwhile, at the Riverdale Heights Police Department, Captain Wilson sat in his office reviewing Officer Randall's body camera footage for the third time. With each viewing, his anger grew. The casual racism, the blatant targeting, the mockery of Andre and his family after the arrest, it was all captured in high definition. Captain Wilson had been with the department for 25 years. He had worked his way up from patrol officer to captain, and he prided himself on running a professional department. But what he was seeing on this footage made him question how well he really knew his officers. There was a knock at his door, and Deputy Chief Harris entered without waiting for a response. You need to see this, Harris said, placing a tablet on the captain's desk. It showed the local news website, where the story about Andre had been updated. Community rally planned in support of teen allegedly profiled by police. Captain Wilson sighed heavily. This is going to be a nightmare. It gets worse, Harris said grimly. The mayor's office has been flooded with calls. They want answers, and they want them now. What about Randall's union rep? Already lawyered up, Harris confirmed. They're claiming the footage doesn't tell the whole story. Captain Wilson gestured to his computer screen. I've watched it 4 times now. It tells enough of the story. As the day progressed, both sides prepared for what was coming. At the Taylor home, Andre sat at his desk trying to focus on homework, but his mind kept drifting. He opened his laptop and began typing. Not his history assignment, but his thoughts about what had happened and what he wanted to say at the community meeting. Lisa watched from the doorway, her heart aching for her son. She had always taught him that he could achieve anything with hard work and determination. Now she was faced with the reality that some obstacles weren't so easily overcome. You okay? She asked softly. Andre nodded without turning around. Just working on what I want to say tomorrow night. Lisa came into the room and placed a hand on his shoulder. You know, when you were little, you used to hate speaking in front of people. You'd hide behind my legs whenever someone asked you a question. That brought a small smile to Andre's face. I remember. Now look at you, Lisa said proudly. Standing up not just for yourself, but for others too. The following evening, the recreation center was packed beyond capacity. People stood along the walls and spilled out into the hallway. The mayor, a nervous-looking man named Harold Fletcher, sat at a table at the front of the room alongside Police Chief Douglas and several city council members. Andre sat with his family in the front row, his heart pounding as he watched the room fill with neighbors, classmates, teachers, and strangers who had heard his story. Diane leaned over to whisper to the family, "The district attorney is here. 3rd row, blue tie." Chief Douglas opened the meeting with a prepared statement about the department's commitment to fair and equal treatment for all citizens. His words rang hollow in the crowded room. When it was time for community members to speak, Mrs. Chen was the first to approach the microphone. I have lived in this community for 3 decades, she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. What I saw happen to Andre Taylor is not an isolated incident. It is part of a pattern that many of us have witnessed or experienced. One by one, community members came forward to share their stories. A middle-aged man described being pulled over 3 times in 1 month for routine checks. A woman tearfully recounted her teenage son being handcuffed on the ground because he matched a description. Retired teacher detailed the changes she had observed in policing over her 40 years in the neighborhood. When it was Andre's turn, he approached the microphone with his typed notes in hand, but as he faced the crowded room, he set the paper aside. My name is Andre Taylor, he began, his voice gaining strength with each word. 2 days ago, I was driving home from basketball practice when I was pulled over, searched without consent, and arrested for crimes I didn't commit. I was respectful. I followed all instructions. I did everything right. And I still ended up in handcuffs. The room was completely silent as he continued. I'm lucky. I had witnesses. I had videos. I have parents who could drop everything to help me. I have an attorney who knows how to navigate the system. But what about all the people who don't have those things? What happens to them? From the back of the room, someone called out, "They disappear into the system." Andre nodded. That's not justice. And it's not what our community deserves from those sworn to protect and serve us. As he returned to his seat, the room erupted in applause. The mayor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Chief Douglas leaned over to whisper something to the mayor, who nodded before approaching the microphone. In light of recent events and the concerns expressed here tonight, Mayor Fletcher announced, I am ordering an independent review of the Riverdale Heights Police Department's policies and practices regarding traffic stops and arrests. Additionally, Officer Kevin Randall has been suspended pending a full investigation. A murmur ran through the crowd. It wasn't enough, everyone knew that, but it was a start. As the meeting concluded, the district attorney approached the Taylor family. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, he said, extending his hand. I've reviewed the evidence in your son's case, including Officer Randall's body camera footage. I'd like to speak with you and your attorney about pursuing criminal charges for filing a false police report. Thomas shook the man's hand firmly. We appreciate that. But this isn't just about our son anymore. The district attorney nodded, understanding. I know. That's why I'm here. As they left the recreation center, reporters swarmed around them, cameras flashing and microphones thrust forward. Andre felt his father's steady hand on his shoulder, guiding him through the crowd. Andre, how do you feel about Officer Randall's suspension? A reporter called out. Andre paused, considering his words carefully. It's a first step, he said finally, but there's still a long way to go. 3 weeks after the community meeting, Andre sat in Diane Reynolds' office, watching rain streak down the windows. The initial media frenzy had died down, but the case was far from over. Diane had files spread across her desk, police reports, witness statements, and transcripts of interviews. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow, Diane reminded him, sliding a folder across the desk. We've been through this before, but I want to make sure you're prepared for what might happen. Andre nodded, opening the folder. Inside was a transcript of Officer Randall's official statement, still maintaining that Andre had been disrespectful and non-compliant during the traffic stop. He's still sticking to his story, Andre said quietly. Yes, Diane confirmed. Despite the video evidence, despite the witness statements, his attorney's strategy seems to be to paint the bystander videos as misleading, only capturing parts of the interaction and missing the supposed provocation. Andre frowned. But what about his body camera footage? That would show everything, right? Diane's expression darkened. That's where things get complicated. The department is fighting our request for the full unedited footage. They claim there are privacy concerns and ongoing investigation issues that prevent its release. They're hiding something, Andre concluded. Almost certainly, Diane agreed. But Judge Harmon is known for being fair. I'm confident she'll rule in our favor on the footage. Andre looked down at his hands. The past 3 weeks had been a roller coaster. He'd returned to school to find himself suddenly famous, or infamous, depending on who you asked. Most of his classmates and teachers had been supportive, but there were whispers. Some people, including a few he'd considered friends, seemed to think he must have done something to provoke Officer Randall. What if they believe him instead of me? Andre asked, voicing the fear that had been keeping him awake at night. Diane set down her pen and looked at him directly. Andre, listen to me. The truth is on our side. We have evidence. We have witnesses. And most importantly, we have you. An honest, articulate young man who's standing up for what's right. As Andre left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from his father. How did it go with Diane? Dinner's at 6, Mom's making your favorite. Andre smiled slightly as he texted back. All good. Be home soon. He decided to walk the 10 blocks home, needing time to clear his head before tomorrow's hearing. As he walked, his mind drifted to Officer Randall. What made someone treat another person that way? Had he always been like this, or had something happened to make him so bitter and prejudiced? Andre was so lost in thought that he almost didn't notice when a police cruiser slowed beside him. His heart jumped into his throat until he recognized Officer Patel, the younger officer who had arrived as backup during his arrest. Andre, can I talk to you for a minute? Officer Patel asked, rolling down his window. Andre stopped, wary but curious. What about? Not here, Officer Patel said, glancing around. Would you be willing to meet me at the coffee shop around the corner? It's important. 20 minutes later, they sat in a corner booth of a nearly empty coffee shop. Officer Patel, out of uniform and clearly nervous, kept checking the door. I shouldn't be doing this, he admitted, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. But after watching what happened to you and then seeing how the department is handling it, I couldn't stay silent. Andre looked at the envelope. What is this? A copy of the full transcript from Officer Randall's body camera, Officer Patel said quietly. Including everything he said after putting you in the patrol car and at the station. The parts they're trying to keep from being released. Andre's hands trembled slightly as he took the envelope. Why are you giving this to me? Officer Patel looked down at his untouched coffee. I became a cop to help people, not to cover up for officers who abuse their power. What Randall did to you was wrong, and what the department is doing now, trying to protect him, that's wrong too. You could lose your job for this, Andre pointed out. Probably, Officer Patel agreed with a grim smile. But I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't do something. That evening, the Taylor family sat around their dining room table with Diane, reviewing the transcript Officer Patel had provided. The room was silent except for the occasional gasp or muttered exclamation as they read Officer Randall's words. This is... Thomas couldn't finish his sentence, too disturbed by what he was reading. Worse than we thought, Diane completed for him, her face grim. The racial slurs, the mockery of your family, the admission that he targets drivers from your neighborhood intentionally. Lisa had tears in her eyes. How can anyone read this and not see exactly what happened? Diane was already typing on her laptop. I'm filing an emergency motion to have this admitted as evidence tomorrow. Officer Patel will likely face consequences for this leak, but it could be the key to breaking through the department's stonewalling. Will he get in trouble? Andre asked, concerned about the young officer who had risked his career. Almost certainly, Diane admitted. But he made his choice, and it was a brave one. The next morning, the Taylor family arrived at the courthouse to find a small crowd gathered outside. Some held signs reading "Justice for Andre" and "End Police Profiling." Others, fewer in number but just as vocal, carried signs supporting Officer Randall and the police department. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Judge Harmon, a stern woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose, called the proceedings to order. This is a preliminary hearing in the matter of Taylor versus Randall and the Riverdale Heights Police Department, she announced. Before we begin, I understand there's an emergency motion from the plaintiff. Diane stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've come into possession of the full transcript from Officer Randall's body camera, which the department has been refusing to release. We believe it contains critical evidence of racial bias and misconduct. The department's attorney, a sharp-dressed man named Gregory Wilson, jumped to his feet. Your Honor, any such transcript would have been obtained illegally and should not be admitted. Judge Harmon raised an eyebrow. Are you acknowledging such a transcript exists, Counselor? Wilson hesitated, caught in his own words. I'm acknowledging that any materials not provided through proper channels should not be considered by this court. I'll decide what this court should consider, Judge Harmon said firmly. I'll review the transcript in my chambers and make a determination. She turned to Diane. And Ms. Reynolds, I expect a full explanation of how this came into your possession. During the recess, Andre sat with his parents in a small consultation room. The wait was excruciating. What happens if she doesn't allow the transcript? Andre asked. We still have the witness videos, Thomas reminded him. Those alone contradict Officer Randall's version of events. When court resumed, Judge Harmon's expression was grave. Having reviewed the materials provided, I'm ordering the immediate release of the complete body camera footage, both video and audio, from Officer Randall's arrest of Andre Taylor. The department's attorney began to protest, but Judge Harmon cut him off. Furthermore, she continued, given what I've read, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges against Officer Randall for filing a false police report and civil rights violations. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Officer Randall, who had been sitting stoically at the defense table, visibly paled. Court will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., at which time we will view the body camera footage in its entirety, Judge Harmon declared, bringing down her gavel. As they left the courtroom, reporters swarmed around them once again. Diane fielded most of the questions, but one reporter called out directly to Andre. "How do you feel about today's ruling?" Andre considered for a moment before answering. "Relieved that the truth will finally come out. But this isn't just about me. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Later that evening, as the family prepared for the next day's hearing, the doorbell rang. Thomas answered it to find Captain Wilson standing on their porch, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes. "Mr. Taylor," the captain began formally, "I was hoping I might have a word with you and your family." Thomas hesitated, then stepped back to allow him in. "We were just having dinner. Would you like to join us?" Captain Wilson shook his head. "No, thank you. I won't take much of your time." In the living room, the captain remained standing, declining the offer to sit. Andre noticed that he looked tired, the lines on his face deeper than they had been at the police station. "I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow's hearing," Captain Wilson began. "What you're going to see and hear, it's not representative of our entire department. But I won't make excuses. What Officer Randall did was inexcusable, and the department's handling of it afterward was problematic." "That's putting it mildly," Lisa said, her voice cool. Captain Wilson nodded. "You're right, we failed. We failed Andre, we failed your family, and we failed our community. I'm here because I want you to know that not everyone in the department stands with Randall. Many of us want to see real change. Words are easy," Thomas pointed out. "What are you actually going to do about it?" "For starters, I've submitted my resignation as captain," Wilson replied, surprising them all. "I was in charge, and this happened on my watch. I've also provided the DA with a complete account of the department's handling of complaints against Officer Randall over the past 5 years." Andre studied the captain's face. "Why are you really here?" Captain Wilson looked directly at Andre. "Because tomorrow, when that footage plays in court, it's going to be painful for you and your family to hear. I wanted you to be prepared, and..." He hesitated. "I wanted to apologize to you personally, Andre. Not as a captain, but as a human being who should have done better." After the captain left, the family sat in silence for a few moments. "Do you think he meant it?" Andre finally asked. Thomas considered the question. "I think he did. But meaning it isn't enough. Real change is going to take more than one captain's resignation or one officer's suspension." "It's a start, though," Lisa pointed out. "A month ago, would you have imagined a police captain standing in our living room apologizing?" That night, Andre lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, in a packed courtroom, everyone would hear exactly what Officer Randall had said about him and his family. The thought made his stomach churn, but there was something else too. A sense that finally, the truth would be undeniable. His phone buzzed with a text from Coach Rivera. "Team's coming to court tomorrow. All of us, you won't face this alone." Andre smiled in the darkness. Whatever happened tomorrow, he wouldn't be facing it alone. The morning of the hearing arrived with a gray sky threatening rain. Andre stood before his bedroom mirror adjusting his tie, the same one he had worn to his grandfather's funeral last year. His hands trembled slightly as he smoothed down the fabric. "You look very grown up," Lisa said from the doorway, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Andre turned to face his mother. "I'm nervous," he admitted. Lisa crossed the room and straightened his tie, though it didn't need straightening. "That's normal. But remember, you're not the one on trial today." Downstairs, Thomas was on the phone with Diane, going over last-minute details. Andre could hear the tension in his father's voice, the controlled anger that had been present since the day of the arrest. The courthouse steps were even more crowded than the day before. News vans lined the street, and reporters thrust microphones toward them as they approached. Andre kept his eyes forward, following Diane's earlier advice. "Don't engage with the press before the hearing. Let the evidence speak for itself." Inside, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Andre spotted his basketball team sitting together in one row, all wearing team ties. Mrs. Chen and other neighbors filled another section. Officer Patel sat alone near the back, out of uniform, his expression anxious. At the defense table, Officer Randall sat with his attorney and a representative from the police union. He looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than he had on the day of the arrest. He didn't turn when the Taylor family entered. Judge Harmon called the court to order precisely at 9 a.m. "Before we begin, I want to make something clear," she announced, surveying the packed courtroom. What we are about to see and hear may be disturbing. I expect complete silence during the viewing. Any outbursts will result in immediate removal from this courtroom. She nodded to the court technician. Proceed with the body camera footage. The lights dimmed slightly as a large screen on the wall came to life. Andre took a deep breath, feeling his mother's hand slip into his on one side and his father's firm grip on his shoulder from the other. The footage began with Officer Randall in his patrol car, following Andre's vehicle. His voice came through clearly on the audio. Got one from the east side driving through where he doesn't belong, Officer Randall muttered to himself. Let's see what we find here. The camera showed the stop sign where Andre had come to a complete halt before proceeding. Despite this, Officer Randall activated his lights and pulled Andre over. As the interaction unfolded on screen, it matched exactly what Andre had described. His polite compliance, Officer Randall's increasing hostility, the baseless search, and the eventual arrest. But it was what happened after Andre was placed in the patrol car that caused the courtroom to grow completely still. Got another one, Officer Randall said to Officer Patel when he arrived on scene. These kids from the east side think they can drive through here like they own the place. What was he doing? Officer Patel asked, visibly uncomfortable on the video. Driving while black? Officer Randall laughed. Plus he tried to get smart with me about his rights. Had to teach him a lesson. The footage continued at the police station, where Officer Randall was seen joking with two other officers. You should have seen his face when I cuffed him, Officer Randall said, mimicking Andre's expression. Mr. Honor Student. Bet Daddy's lawyer will have him out in an hour, but at least he'll think twice before driving through my neighborhood again. One of the other officers looked uncomfortable. Did he actually do anything? Does it matter? Officer Randall replied with a shrug. These kids need to learn respect. Besides, by the time anyone reviews this, it'll be my word against his. Then came the most damning part. Officer Randall using explicit racial slurs to describe Andre and his family, making crude jokes about putting them in their place. Throughout the viewing, the courtroom remained deadly quiet, the only sounds an occasional gasp or sharp intake of breath. Andre kept his eyes on the screen, even when he wanted to look away. This was his experience, his truth, and he would bear witness to all of it. When the footage ended, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Harmon removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose before speaking. In light of what we've just seen, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger, this court finds that Officer Kevin Randall knowingly filed a false police report, conducted an unlawful search and arrest, and violated the civil rights of Andre Taylor. She turned to the district attorney, who had joined the proceedings that morning. Mr. Lawrence, does the DA's office wish to file criminal charges in this matter? The district attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. The district attorney's office is prepared to file charges for filing a false police report, official misconduct, and civil rights violations. Officer Randall finally showed emotion, his face paling as he whispered urgently to his attorney. Judge Harmon wasn't finished. Furthermore, I am ruling that the Riverdale Heights Police Department displayed deliberate indifference by failing to address previous complaints against Officer Randall, creating an environment where such misconduct was effectively condoned. She looked directly at Andre. Mr. Taylor, on behalf of the justice system that failed you, I extend my sincerest apologies. No citizen should be treated as you were by those sworn to protect and serve. Outside the courthouse, the rain had finally started, a gentle drizzle that seemed to wash away some of the tension of the morning. Diane fielded questions from reporters while the Taylor family stood beside her, united and dignified. Today, justice was served, Diane told the cameras. But this case is about more than one officer or one incident. It's about systemic issues that must be addressed if we want true equity in our justice system. A reporter called out, Andre, how do you feel about the ruling? Andre stepped forward. The boy who had once been shy about public speaking now faced the bank of cameras with quiet confidence. I feel relieved that the truth came out, he said simply. But this isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's been profiled. Everyone who wasn't believed. Everyone who didn't have video evidence or witnesses or the resources to fight back. Today is just the beginning of the work we need to do. 6 months later, Andre stood at a podium in the Riverdale Heights Community Center, addressing a crowded room. At 18, he was now a freshman at State University. balancing his studies. With his new role as a youth representative on the Civilian Police Oversight Board that had been established in the wake of his case. When I was wrongfully arrested last year, I never imagined where that path would lead, he told the audience. I just wanted justice for myself. But along the way, I realized that individual justice isn't enough if the system remains broken for others. In the audience, his parents watched with pride. Thomas had become the chairperson of the Oversight Board, bringing his analytical mind and steady temperament to the challenging work of police reform. Lisa had started a support group for families, navigating the justice system, providing the guidance and resources they had been fortunate enough to have. The changes we've seen in the past 6 months are just the beginning, Andre continued. Our new police chief has implemented mandatory bias training. Body cameras are now required to remain on during all interactions with the public. And complaints against officers are now reviewed by a civilian board, rather than internally. He gestured to Officer Patel, now Sergeant Patel, who sat in the front row. After testifying against Officer Randall, he had faced backlash from some colleagues but had also emerged as a leader in the department's reform efforts. Change doesn't happen overnight, Andre acknowledged. And it doesn't happen without sacrifice and commitment from everyone involved. But we're seeing progress, real progress, that makes me hopeful for the future. After the meeting, Andre chatted with community members, many of whom had supported him through the ordeal. Mrs. Chen hugged him tightly. Your grandfather would be so proud, she told him, referring to the community activist who had marched with Dr. King decades ago. You're carrying on his legacy. Later that evening, Andre sat on the porch swing with his parents, enjoying the mild spring air. His first semester of college had been challenging but rewarding. He was majoring in political science with plans to attend law school, a path he hadn't considered before his arrest. Diane called today, Thomas mentioned. The civil settlement was approved. The money will be waiting for you when you graduate. Andre nodded. The financial settlement from their lawsuit against the police department was substantial, but it had never been about the money for him. I'm thinking of using it to start a scholarship, he said, for kids from our neighborhood who want to study law or public policy. Lisa smiled. That's a wonderful idea. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the neighborhood children play in the twilight. So much had changed in the past 6 months, yet so much remained the same. The work of transformation, both personal and systemic, was ongoing. You know, Andre said finally, that day, when Officer Randall pulled me over, I was so scared. I felt powerless. But now I understand that speaking truth to power is the greatest strength we have. Thomas squeezed his son's shoulder. You found your voice, and you're helping others find theirs. As darkness fell over Riverdale Heights, Andre thought about all the invisible threads that connected his story to so many others, past, present, and future. What had happened to him was not unique, but the response, the community rising up, the system being forced to change, the truth coming to light, that could be the beginning of something new. One case wouldn't fix a broken system. One victory wouldn't erase centuries of injustice. But it was a start, and for tonight that was enough.